Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a supernatural horror film, A Tale of Two Sisters. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. At the mental hospital, a gloomy girl, nicknamed Gloomy, is being questioned by a doctor. Held back by her shock and trauma, Gloomy stays silent. The doctor shows her a picture of her family and asks her to open up about the incident that led to her institutionalization in the hospital. The next day, Gloomy is released from the asylum and returns home with her father and her little sister named Cutie. When they arrive at their house out in the woods, the two sisters are hesitant to enter. They are both dreading the reunion with their stepmother. Instead, they run out to the nearby lake and hang out there until nightfall. Eventually, they are forced to return and are welcomed by their stepmother, who seems reluctant to meet with the girls. The stepmother forces herself to greet the girls as pleasantly as she can, but the exchange is tense, and the two sisters walk away to their rooms without saying a word. In her room, Gloomy starts to unpack her things. She is startled when she finds an exact copy of her diary already on her desk. When she opens her cabinet, she is surprised to find all her clothes hanging neatly inside. Later that evening, the entire family sits down to have dinner. Just like earlier, the atmosphere is tense and everyone's quiet. The stepmother finally breaks the silence and announces that she has invited the sisters' uncle and aunt over to dinner the next day. Gloomy quickly expresses her irritation at the stepmother for cleaning up her room without her permission. The stepmother replies and tells her that her clothes were already hanging and that she did not touch Gloomy's things. After Gloomy tells her stepmother that she refuses to see her uncle and her aunt, she leaves the table and goes up to her room. Cutie follows shortly after and is told by her sister to immediately let her know if their stepmother ever bothers her. As Cutie goes to bed for the night, she is awakened by some noises outside her room. The door to her room slowly opens, a female hand creeping slowly around it. Frightened, Cutie pulls the covers over her head and hides, but the covers are slowly pulled away from her. When she finally gathers the courage to look around her room, she finds it empty. Bothered by the incident, she runs to her sister and tells her that someone is in her room. When Gloomy goes to investigate, she finds nothing. She heads down to drink some water and finds her father on the sofa. As she pulls a blanket over him, she is caught by her stepmother, who tells her not to wake him up. The two start arguing and Gloomy walks away in frustration. She returns to her room, and after comforting Cutie, they fall asleep together. While sleeping, Gloomy is plagued by a nightmare about her dead mother. She also sees visions of a bloody hand clawing at the floor as if trying to escape. When she wakes up, she sees a terrifying woman with long black hair crawling on the floor. The woman notices Gloomy looking at her and stands to face her. With Gloomy frozen in fear, the woman begins approaching and hovering over her. Cowering in fear, Gloomy notices blood dripping down the woman's legs. A hand suddenly appears from under her dress, and Gloomy finally wakes up, this time for real. In the morning, Gloomy finds blood on the bed and on her sister's shorts, signaling her menstruation. When she fetches a pad from her sister, Gloomy finds out that her stepmother is also on her period. Shortly after, she too feels blood in her pants. Unbelievably, the three women in the house meet their period on the same day. Later, Gloomy finds out through family photos that her stepmother was formerly a nurse and that she took care of their terminally ill mother before she died. Cutie enters the room, and they rummage through their late mother's belongings together. While going through her things, Gloomy finds bruises on her sister's arm. When Cutie refuses to tell her who caused the bruises, Gloomy violently forces her to confess. Gloomy breaks free from her sister's grasp and leaves the room. So Gloomy confronts her stepmom later and gets into an argument with her when she refuses to apologize to Cutie. When her father, who has overheard their argument, goes to comfort her, she brushes him off. At night, the aunt and the uncle arrive for dinner. The stepmother is hysterical while telling a story, but everyone else is silent, clearly uncomfortable with her overly cheerful behavior. When the uncle tells him that he does not remember what she's talking about, she reverts back to her normal icy demeanor. Suddenly, the aunt begins to grab at her throat. She falls to the floor and starts convulsing. Her husband and the father rush to restrain her and finally manage to calm down. Meanwhile, the stepmother is screaming in the kitchen while watching all of this unfold. After recovering, the aunt and the uncle leave. On their way home, the aunt tells her husband that she saw a girl under the sink. Back at home, the stepmother notices the sink cabinet suddenly open. She slowly walks over to the cabinet and closes it before going to check underneath the sink. When she checks, she finds nothing. Behind her, however, a girl is seen suddenly sitting near the dining table. Slowly, she turns to the dining table but sees nobody there. As she is standing up, she finds a hair clip on the floor in front of her. She reaches for it, but a bloody hand grabs her arm from under the sink. In terror, she pulls herself loose and finds herself face to face with the girl from the dining table earlier. She later tells her husband that strange things have been happening since the girl's returned, but he doesn't believe her. Later that night, the father finds the stepmother's pet bird dead in its cage. The stepmother also finds out about the dead bird while silently watching him in the shadows. Enraged, she rushes to QB's room to take her revenge. After finding herself vandalized in the family photos, she pulls QB out of bed and finds the corpse of her pet bird underneath the covers. She attacks QB and locks her inside the closet for punishment. Gloomy wakes up and hears noises outside her room. When the stepmother leaves, she runs to QB's room and finds it trashed. Finally, she opens the closet and opens it, finding the scared QB crying inside. She comforts QB and apologizes for not hearing her cries and coming sooner. Gloomy promises her that this will never happen again. After burying the bird outside, the father confronts his daughters. He asks Gloomy why she keeps acting out, and Gloomy lashes out, telling him that it is because of her stepmother who keeps on harassing Cutie. The father is stunned and tells her to stop, but she only continues. Having had enough, the father shouts at her to stop. He tells her that QB is dead. In denial, Gloomy refuses to believe his smelly bullshit. She then tells QB, who is sobbing beside her, that he is wrong, but she is inconsolable. The next day, the father invites someone over to the house. The stepmother is seen pulling a large bloody sack around the house and starts beating it with a crowbar. Gloomy is woken up by the noise and finds a note from her father informing her that he has left the house and will be back in a while. She runs out of her room and hears QB's voice calling her. Downstairs, she is horrified after finding a trail of blood on the floor. She follows the trail around the house and finds the bloody sack lying on the floor. She desperately tries to untie the ropes and open the sack, but to no avail. Frantically, she searches through the kitchen for a knife. She is suddenly stopped in her tracks when she sees a vision of herself hitting the sack. When she returns, she finds the sack missing. Once again, Gloomy follows the blood trail to a closet where she finds the sack. As she reaches out to open it, the sack suddenly moves. Meanwhile, the stepmother walks into the kitchen. She wipes the blood off her hands and turns off the kettle on the stove. With the boiling kettle in her hand, she walks to Gloomy and tries to pour the water on her. Gloomy reacts quickly and manages to knock the kettle away from her. She grabs a pair of scissors and stabs the stepmother's hand. The two wrestle, and Gloomy is knocked against a glass door while the stepmother falls on some scattered fish hooks on the floor. When Gloomy tries to run away, her stepmother grabs her feet and causes her to trip. She falls and hits her head on the counter, blacking out as a result. A few moments later, the stepmother drags Gloomy out into the living room. Barely conscious, she sees her stepmother drag a garden statue into the house. When Gloomy finally wakes up for good, she finds her stepmother kneeling beside her. She tells Gloomy that she will never be able to escape her past and forget her memories. She stands up and grabs the statue, lifting it over Gloomy's head. Before she is able to drop the statue and kill Gloomy, the father arrives. When he enters the house, the father sees Gloomy lying on the ground unconscious, with the statue in pieces on the ground beside her. After helping Gloomy to her bedroom, the father looks around the house. He finds the sack inside the closet and finds only a bloody doll inside. The father finds his wife in the living room and tends to her wounds. After giving her medicine, he tells her to stop all the quarreling and the fighting. Resigned, he exits the room. A few seconds later, the door swings open and the stepmother becomes terrified. The camera swings around and reveals the stepmother dressed in a suit standing in the doorway. She calls out Gloomy's name, and we see Gloomy sitting on the couch where the bloodied stepmother had just been sitting moments ago. Gloomy lies in shock and experiences a flashback. In it, she sees herself dragging the sack across the floor. She begins to beat the doll inside it with a crowbar. The flashback also reveals that Gloomy was the one who killed the bird, and that she returned from the asylum alone without a sister, as her little sister had already died a long time ago. Finally, she remembers that she was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder and schizophrenia, and realizes that all the events that had happened in the past few days were only hallucinations caused by her disorder. The stepmother that we have seen until now is only Gloomy's portrayal of her stepmom. It is how she imagines her stepmother to be, not how her stepmother really is. This also explains why the three women in the house previously had their period on the exact same day. Dejected, she sees 2 pills in her hand, which she drinks to stabilize her emotions. After that, Gloomy is brought back to the mental hospital. Outside her room, her now stepmother is waiting in worry. She sees her husband talking with doctors and specialists and enters Gloomy's room. She tries to comfort Gloomy and tells her that they can take better care of her in the hospital and will visit her often. When the stepmother stands to leave the room, Gloomy grabs her arm. She eventually manages to pull herself loose and they leave. Alone in the room, Gloomy starts seeing Cubie's wandering ghost again. That night, the stepmother is alone in the dining room when she hears strange noises upstairs. She enters Cubie's room and is startled by a shadow moving behind the curtains. When she walks over to the curtains, the door suddenly shuts and the lights turn off. In the dark, the closet door swings open. As the stepmother opens the closet, Cubie's ghost emerges. The stepmother falls back in terror, and the ghost starts crawling slowly toward her. Ultimately, the stepmother is killed by Cubie's ghost. However, this killing of the stepmother might also be part of the hallucinations created by Gloomy, who's unstable and full of hate toward her stepmother. The movie flashes back to little sister Cutie, lying alone in her room. The closet door suddenly opens and Cutie walks over to close it. Inside the cabinet, she finds her dead mother hanging from a rope. It turns out the ill mother finds out that her husband was having an affair with the nurse, who later became the exact stepmother. So the ill mother decided to kill herself due to the humiliation. Cutie tries desperately to free her mother and save her, but instead pulls the entire cabinet down on herself. She struggles to escape, but cannot lift the cabinet off her. It is revealed that the struggling hand that Gloomy saw in her nightmare before was her sister's when she was trying to escape from under the cabinet. Right then, the noise prompts the stepmother to check Cubie's room. When she enters the room, she sees the cabinet on the floor and hears someone struggling and crying for help under it. In shock, the stepmother hesitates to help and wants to leave. But as she decides to return to help, she runs into Gloomy, who tells her to stay out of their lives and leave their family alone. Therefore, the stepmother can't hold her anger and warns Gloomy that she will regret for what she did now. Meanwhile, Gloomy storms out of the house in anger, unknowingly leaving her sister alone to die under the weight of the cabinet. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.